Let my honey come back. Sometime I'm on a red back jack. Sometime I get a hump in my back. Sometime I'm going over here. Sometime let my honey come back. Sometime I'm on a red back jack. Sometime I get a hump in my back. Sometime I'm going over here. Sometime let my honey come back. Sometime I'm on a red back jack. Sometime I get a hump in my back. Sometime I'm going over here. Sometime let my honey come back. Sometime I'm on a red back jack. Sometime I get a hump in my back.
Well, from my understanding, the origins of Occupy Wall Street were a bunch of individuals that were upset that both big businesses as well as Wall Street were pretty much controlling the nation's economy. And by controlling the nation's economy, it was creating a huge divide between the haves and have-nots.
But yeah, I think initially to talk about economic equity and economic justice, because I think it's a belief of the people in the movement, the people in the tents, that right now that legislatively laws, bailouts, everything favors the wealthy and well-connected.
The Occupy Wall Street movement is a social phenomenon that started as a protest focusing on social and economic inequality, high unemployment, greed, and corruption of corporations.
The small, disorganized protest on Wall Street in Lower Manhattan here in New York has grown today to demonstrations nationwide against corporate greed.
The corporations run America, that we no longer have a voice.
I'm out here because I'm tired of the corporate corruption. I'm tired of seeing millions and millions of dollars that I work for every year go to waste.
Corruption, the whole government is run by lobbyists, and it's a form of bribery, and it creates complete inefficiency, and it destroys the country.
Those involved have been violating social norms, mores, and laws, even to the extent of being arrested. There have been massive amounts of media coverage on this movement in attempts to understand the cultural patterns, values, and folkways. It may be too early to tell if this movement will produce its own counterculture, but there is obvious ethnocentrism among the superior 1%.
Right now, 1% of the world, 1% of America's population owns 40% of the resources.
I believe everybody on this planet, I don't mean just some of the people on this planet, but all the people on this planet have the right to the abundance that has been withheld from us by the top 1/10 of 1%. They've done that for their own greedy purposes.
For Occupy protesters, the stakes are high. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, in 2010, real median household income has declined 6.4% since 2007. Meanwhile, the income of the top 1% continues to rise. In 2009, the average income for the top 1% was $960,000. But even while making record profits, corporate leaders refuse to create or even keep current jobs within the country.
They're protected by our political class because they have the money to buy the politicians.
It's not okay for me to work a 9-to-5 job so somebody else can buy a Camaro.
Demand for the government action has reached a definite climax. The stigma of carrying signs that state "We are the 99% adds to protesters' deviance.
We want a chance to restore the American dream. That American dream has been lost. So this is a direct result of that. It's basically we're fighting for a better future.
Which is sort of a anti-consumer something, just kind of taking offense to the way in which people are, keeping up with the Joneses.
The money we use already has interest on it. We're getting screwed. Consuming does not make you happy.
Occupy Wall Street has now spread globally. There are common values shared throughout the world, from Asia to Europe to America. The values of employment, the ability to provide for our families, and afford health care and education are universal.
From New York to LA, even up in Maine, people took to the streets to express their anger and make sure their message is heard. But what exactly is their message?
This is not the way it's supposed to be.
We're out here for 3 main reasons: greed, inequality, and corruption.
Our government is up for sale. Your future is up for sale.
I'm protesting corruption in government, and I think that our country has gone too far.
I'm particularly concerned that we can have better policies in this country.
You're gonna know that there's Chicanos, there's Latinos, there's our people towards the movement. So we're striking against corporate greed.
At the basic part of it is that people's basic needs aren't being taken care of.
We're trying to bring back America the way it used to be.
I think the movement's already succeeded in getting people to talk about it, and maybe a little more support for what they would call the middle class or the needy classes in society. Yeah, and I think the movement people would cite that as the ultimate hypocrisy. That's the public's going to scream about a few $100,000 added expense in terms of law enforcement, but you can craft legislation to bail out banks to the tune of $700 billion in 3 days. And I think that maybe the movement people would say that's Exhibit A in terms of the unfairness of it.
They create money. They create money. Out of thin air. Out of thin air. They are getting. They are getting. Billions of dollars. Billions of dollars. Of our money. Of our money.
It's been a two-sided coin in terms of clashes with police, the cost of law enforcement dealing with these Occupy entities around the country. On the one hand, expense, people throwing urine or things like that don't help the movement at all. On the other hand, when you have police pepper spraying students at UC Davis, that's kind of builds sympathy for people. So it's a real double-edged sword. It's been largely kind of a leaderless, amorphic kind of evolving thing.
Say democracy. We are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic.
Buying votes. It's about corruption.
So go after the politician. Do you think that this is helping? You can't just say everybody gets a minimum wage and think it's going to go better. You didn't change the equation. You just raised the prices of things. Nothing has fundamentally changed.
I believe that the first couple of weeks, Occupy Wall Street actually had individuals with a set goal, set ideology. They did what they were there to do. They got their news media, they got their faces on television, and what's happened is that particular movement has turned into a hodgepodge of individuals that really don't have a set goal or a set idea. They just took advantage of what the movement was about, and they pretty much just moved into where Occupy was, and they've just basically became a pain, is what they've become.
I understand, but the problem is there's no coherent messaging. What I'm hearing, a lot of people, what I'm seeing, and what I'm coming across is people who don't. When we were getting involved, when this man here was coming here a month ago, 2 months ago, this was a movement of 40 people. 40 people who had points. Now you got a whole bunch of people with some crazy-ass signs. People are talking about communism, socialism. People are talking about things they don't understand. They don't understand economics. They don't understand money.
We need a thought process, where we have a genuine, broad dialogue. I have heard more intelligent dialogue here in the past couple of weeks than I've heard in 30 years of television nonsense.
It's another one of those instances where you have people with set goals and set ideas. After they either accomplish or they get tired of doing anything because they don't see an end game in sight, they pack up and move on, meaning the leadership, and when the leadership moves on, that means that they're just going to be your basic dregs and ruffians that move in, and they basically look to stir up more trouble than they do to actually support a cause.
We have a message for the Federal Reserve. We are going to audit you. We are going to end you. And we are going to print our own money here in the United States of America again.
I think this is an interesting thing for political science people to look at, because it's really a thing where new media, the internet, social media, tweet, all that kind of business, enabled people to connect to what this core group of folks were doing on September 17th, and then gradually it spilled over to other cities. On the one hand, the energy, the movement as a conversation changer might be beneficial, but on the other hand, if you get too close to lawlessness and or anarchy, there's going to be some negative backlash there. So, I think the whole movement is kind of up in the air right now.
Sure. Is this going to be on the news or something?
Don't drink the corporate Kool-Aid.
Just having a good
They could literally put everything in their control under a debt-based monetary system and bleed the rest of us dry and use us like vampires use cattle. It's coming to an end.